Hey, Wemberg World Entertainment, and oh boy, are the media big mad over Starfleet Academy, and none more so than the Mary Sue. Now, look, the Mary Sue's an absolute rag of a website anyway, but the girl who seems to write a lot of these articles, Rachel Leishman, she seems to have an absolute pure hatred for Nerdrotic. Like, she cannot stand the dude. She's a little obsessed with him because anytime he does something that really takes off, she lashes out. And she has taken this opportunity with Starfleet Academy not just to lash out at Nerdrotic, but also the Critical Drinker and pretty much every single one of us who has said that Starfleet Academy is a dumpster fire of a show. I'm going to read you her article because it's hilarious what she says in this article, the mistakes she makes, the things she tries to point out but doesn't actually back up any of it, and the contradiction to one of the things she says. So let's read the article before we break down everything, which she titled, "Those Dude Bros Mad at Starfleet Academy Aren't Actually Star Trek Fans." So that's her first point, is that none of us are fans if we don't like this thing. But let's dive into her article. So she writes, "Time and time again we're confronted with, air quotes, fans of something who continues to miss the lessons within the media they're consuming. We've seen it with Star Wars, our superhero stories, and it has become an increasing problem with Star Trek, air quotes, fans. More recently, men like the Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic, known for hating anything that seems to be left-leaning, have been dogging on the Paramount Plus slate of Trek shows. The issue with this right-wing figureheads talking about Trek is that they miss one important detail about Star Trek. It was never for them. From the start of Star Trek way back when, the series set out to do one thing, change the world, and that it did. It made history for its inclusivity, including being the first interracial kiss on television in Pluto's Stepchildren. The kiss was between William Shatner's James T. Kirk and Nichelle Nichols' Lieutenant Uhura. But since men like these ex-personalities think that they are the authority on all things nerdy, the reality is they just speak loudly and incorrectly about these franchises. Look, you can use your money to buy every Star Trek toy out there. Doesn't mean you understand what this series is saying to you. And now, with the new series Star Trek Starfleet Academy, we've seen an uptick in their lack of understanding of what Gene Roddenberry sought out to do with Star Trek. You're a Republican MAGA personality, Star Trek was never yours. A lot of the conversation is about how Starfleet Academy isn't their Star Trek. Well, seeing as Roddenberry held democratic and socialist ideals when he was alive, I'd be hard-pressed to find a Star Trek episode that ever vaguely fit your ideas. What I have come to realize is that there are men in this world who want to pretend like they're fans of this stuff when they don't actually care. They'll buy a Spock doll and pretend like they understand the show itself, but the reality is that they just buy nerdy things and make that their personality. That's fine, be a collector, dude, but don't act like you understand these franchises when they argue against everything you stand for. It got so bad that Stephen Miller, yes, that one, decided to mock the show. He also thinks William Shatner should take over as showrunner for some reason. Shatner even mocked him. But what I think is hilarious is that accounts like End Wokeness are posting about Star Trek. Yes, you read that right. They want to put an end to the wokeness agenda on shows like Star Trek. I wish I was making this up. Tell me you've never actually watched Star Trek without telling me. I come from a family of Trek lovers, myself included. To me, Christmas doesn't start until I hear Leonard Nimoy say, "Shuttlecraft to Enterprise, shuttlecraft to Enterprise, Spock here, happy holidays, live long and prosper." From my brother's Star Trek Christmas tree. It has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, which is probably why the whales, Gracie and George, are my favourites. But my point is that I know Trek, so whenever I see these talking heads berating the franchise, I know they don't actually care about Roddenberry's vision or what the show represents. Greg Gutfeld mocked the YouTube views of the first episode because Nerdrotic live streamed a Spock figure sitting on a chair and it got more. Luckily, most Star Trek fans have Paramount Plus and watched it there, but I guess if you only have a few brain cells that work, you think this is a gotcha moment. All of this to say that Starfleet Academy is what I have always loved about Star Trek. It feels like a warm hug and is fun, adventurous, and exactly the kind of world that Roddenberry dreamt of 60 years ago. So don't let a bunch of nonsense on social media try to paint the show in any other way. These people, despite all their parading around as experts on nerdom, don't actually know what they're talking about. They'll attack and lash out and demand you prove yourself, but in reality, those of us who actually love and enjoy these franchises know we know a lot more than some grifters online. Now, that's her entire article. Yeah, she loves Star Trek so much she can't reference anything from Star Trek to back up her love of Star Trek. The irony is her apparent love for Star Trek comes from her brother owning a Star Trek Christmas tree. The irony of her saying that is the fact that she berates people by saying, "Hey, look, you can spend all your money and all the Star Trek toys you want, doesn't mean you understand the series. Yet you've just said your love for the series comes from a Christmas tree that your brother owned. Are you kidding me?" So the idea as well to say she knows Star Trek. And that's the thing. She's saying it was Star Trek, it was never for you. Okay then, Rachel, who the hell was it always for then? Because according to her, when she states that Gene Roddenberry was a Democrat and a socialite, then you're saying Star Trek is only for people on the left. That is what you would have to be saying here. Because if you're saying that Gene Roddenberry was a Democrat, then you were painting the picture that he meant Star Trek to only be for people on the blue side, which is hilarious. It's also hilarious that she's calling Critical Drinker a Republican and a MAGA personality. Critical Drinker is Scottish. He's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat, he's not an anything when it comes to American politics because he's Scottish. He doesn't live in the US, he lives in Scotland. So where exactly he's a MAGA supporter and a Republican, I have no idea where she comes up with that. But out of everything she's saying that we understand. These old farts know nothing. We understand. This girl is like 34. That's it. She's barely scraped the surface of anything to do with life. And she thinks she knows Star Trek and says nothing. Now, the reason she calls out the whole thing of you can buy all the toys you want, clearly she's heard Gary say, because she sat there and said, "I'm such a massive fan of Doctor Who, and Nerdrotic knows nothing about Doctor Who," even though the guy has the bloody Gallifreyan language tattooed on his arm. He called her out and said, "Where's your Doctor Who collection? You've no comics, you've no DVDs, you no Blu-rays, you no toys, nothing. But you're saying you're this massive." So that's where she's taking that shot. But her whole reasoning for writing this article is for the fact of the very thing she brought up, is that Gary put a little action figure of Spock on a chair, live streamed it, and it got more views than the premiere episode of Starfleet Academy. And she's taken the shots at Critical Drinker because he put out a video on Starfleet Academy and it got triple the views of the Starfleet Academy premiere in 4 hours. So That is why she's lashing out. And the irony of her saying that people who say they are the experts on nerdom and stuff will actually just lash out at you. They'll attack and lash out and demand you prove yourself is exactly what she's doing with this article. There's no if, buts, ands about that. That's exactly what she's doing. She's saying, we're trying to tell you you're not allowed to like the show. Yet she's telling you you're not allowed not to like it. So we're not telling you you can't like it. We may question how in the name of all that's holy do you like it, but we're not telling you you can't like it. How dare you watch it? How you call yourself a fan and yet you're watching and enjoying it? We've never said that. But she's clearly lashing out and saying if you don't like it, well, clearly you were never a fan. You've never liked the series. You've never liked the franchise. You've never cared about it. And you definitely never understood it. Star Trek was never about what it is now. And to say Gene Roddenberry would love this? No. Gene Roddenberry would not love watching these idiots run around swallowing their comm badges, trying to lick the fake soil, swearing all over the place, all of this stuff, and having a military college. No. Because here's the thing, Rachel, and it's something you clearly don't actually understand about Star Trek. Star Trek was never about what we're seeing in these shows now. All the, look at the representation stuff. Yes, he put representation in there, even though the network told him it will fail if you put these people in the show. He didn't just put them in the show the way they do now, where they come out, rush out and scream at you, we got gay people in the show and we're going to shove it down your throat to tell you that they're gay and make sure you understand that they're gay and all that BS. He didn't do that. He just put the characters in there in proper positions, seen as equals. Why? Because his thought and whole idea for Star Trek was that it was going to be the best of humanity. That humanity was so hopeful, and that's what the show was always about, and his vision was about the future, that mankind could actually get past their differences, get past war and all bitterness and everything like that, and actually come together in peace and harmony with optimism and actually go out there together and explore. That's what Star Trek was always about. It wasn't about identity politics, the way you morons try to shovel it down your throat. By the way, you're saying how these people call out loudly and incorrectly the things about these franchises, and then you try and say how the kiss was the first ever kiss between two different coloured people. Problem there, Rachel, is you didn't do your research, because yes, it was the first interracial kiss on television. The only thing is, it was the first interracial kiss between a black woman and a white man, but it wasn't actually the first interracial kiss. In fact, one of them happened the year before, Pluto's Son, in a different show, and then another one happened even before that, which actually involved William Shatner as well, and an Asian woman. So you'd want to do your actual research into saying this type of stuff before you try and lash out at everyone else. And again, the irony that she says, I know Star Trek, I love Star Trek, and then doesn't say anything about how she loves and knows Star Trek. She has no references. The only reference she brings up was George and Gracie, the humpback whales, which is not ironic that she brings up the whale after an episode of Starfleet Academy drops that featured, humpback whales. So why isn't she naming characters? Why isn't she talking about how the show inspired actual science in the real world today? She doesn't explain any of that. Do you know why? Because she doesn't know anything about the series, when her whole love for Star Trek apparently comes from her brother owning a Christmas tree with Spock on it. So, no, sorry Rachel Love and the Mary Sue, but you people are dead wrong, and you actually know nothing. And to sit there and try and you understand Star Trek, are we turning around telling you you don't understand it, but you don't understand it because it was never made for you? No, we're not. Do you know why? Because Star Trek was made for everyone. Absolutely everyone. That is who Star Trek was for. So for you to try and take the high ground and say Star Trek was never for any of you who don't like this dumpster fire of a show just shows you your ignorance. But what do you guys think? Do you think she's right? Do you think she's just a clown? And do you think she is just truly butthurt because a little Spock doll on an empty chair got more views than the actual premiere of Starfleet Academy on the YouTube channel? By the way, her saying that, everyone has Paramount Plus, so they'll have just watched it there. Well, those numbers didn't quite work out either, because it only charted at number 7 and only did it for 4 days before it got pushed out of the top 10 on the chart. So nobody watched this thing. So let me know what your thoughts are on all this. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, hit the hype button, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.